Hi, Aaron, are you there?
Hi, Al.
Hi. I just thought I'd come on early in case there were some other changes or we had some weird technicalities, but it looks like we don't.
I think we should be all set.
Okay. Whoops. And there's the boss. Hey, boss.
Thought you were the boss.
No. Sorry to be such an old pain in the ass about.
Well, you were a little bit. It's all right though.
Yeah. Oh, you're so honest. No, I just sometimes, especially when I'm in the meetings, I get a little bit tongue-tied or confused about the items, and it's good to have it right in front of my face at times so I don't mess up.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, everything goes according to plan. We would like to have like a separate staff report for each case, and I think that might be easier to follow. I do feel like it gets a little jumbled up when they're all on the agenda format. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
What I did tell Jasleen, I don't know if she mentioned it to you, but I think the rest of the planning board members like the synopsis of the staff recommendations rather than going through, like if you have a conditional use and going through each conditional use topic and then making a comment about, what the findings are. This really kind of boils it down better.
yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the nature of the case. Obviously, something more controversial, we probably will have to get into the standards in a little more detail, but some of these cases are pretty straightforward and kind of speak for themselves. So.
Yeah, I talked, Martha Doherty called me. She did some research on the planning board's powers concerning waivers on conditional uses, and she's going to explain that. I'm going to ask her to talk about that in the beginning of the meeting. And also, as it relates specifically to the Albany County Planning Board and the fact that they don't rule on waivers, they shouldn't anyway. They only rule on the project. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's got to end somewhere. I mean, the whole goal, I think, of trying to put these waivers before the board in advance is so that applicants know, what's going to be acceptable and they can finalize their final documents. So that can be sent to the county, because the county, I think, at least in speaking with Zach, had also kind of leaned on us to make sure we weren't referring them too early and we're giving them the full application package. And as you know, that doesn't always materialize till later in the process. So.
Okay.
So, Al, did Jasleen send you the list of speakers, or do I need to have that handy?
That's
Do you usually call those out, or do I? I don't remember.
No, usually it's Aaron or Jasleen.
Yeah, I have. She put them in the presentation, and then she gave me a list with everyone's name. So.
How many do we have?
I mean, other than we have a speaker signed up for 250 Washington Avenue Extension.
Yeah,
and
that's
then we have a speaker signed up. And then we have a speaker signed up for 237 Western Avenue.
Yeah, that's the only one so far.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're okay so far. And then, they're supposed to sign up 24 hours in advance. So if they haven't, they got a problem, but we can, in our discretion, as the cover sheet says, the public cover sheet, if there's somebody who we, in our discretion, feel that they need desperately to talk, we can. And we've made exceptions because sometimes the person who wants to talk can clarify something, or in some cases, it's a common council member who, has to go to a meeting and didn't get out of the meeting in time to get to the planning department. or didn't get out of the meeting in time the day before. But I think with this 24-hour rule, we're in better shape, because then even common council members have an opportunity to say they want to speak. Aaron, you have the clock and everything? The 3-minute clock?
I can set something up, or I could I might do it on my phone.
Yeah, Aaron, we very graciously thank Aaron for helping out tonight. I find it useful to have someone helping on the Zoom while I'm kind of speaking to the content, but Aaron is the third person in line, at least, for doing this. So
I also don't run my meetings quite the same way that that Zach does. So
Yeah. Okay.
I can pull something up, but I might just do it. I think I'm gonna do it on my phone. So
Are we just among ourselves, or are we public?
no,
right now?
we are public right now, and there are
Okay.
2 attendees.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll wait for everybody else if they're on early, as we are. It's a beautiful day today. I actually got out and did some gardening work.
I'm stuck here all day. Bummer.
Well, I just scraped the moss off of the brick walk that I have in my perennial garden. The moss loves to grow there during the winter time. Okay.
Is Dan on the board now? Isn't that a conflict?
Welcome to the board. Thank you.
Sometimes I think he's chairman of the board.
Well, that was a real concern back in the day, so shouldn't joke too much.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Martin, we got you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, we just need to see your face unless you want to remain.
No,
Hey,
just a
fund me
second.
with the graphic.
So it's best on my computer to start them separately, because otherwise it crashes sometimes. And there we go.
All right.
So we have a little confusion here, just where we've got some applicants that are among the panelists on the screen, and then some applicant representatives that are in the attendees room. So I'm just gonna go ahead and at least label the planning board members next to their names so that you all know who is who.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Just waiting for our two other planning board members. I have a message from Glenessa. She's running late.
So Al, I'll just point out too, I think the first item is a workshop item, although I don't know that it'll take very long to go through, so.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Roman.
Roman,
I just sent you a text, but you could ignore it. To those of you who are waiting, we apologize. We have one planning board member who's running late. And we need to wait just a few minutes more before we get going.
Boy, Al, you could at least been polite in the email or the voice message.
That's the beauty of email. Or texts, actually, I don't know what I did. Well, we do have a quorum, and I think we can get started at least with the preliminaries. So, Aaron, tell me when you're ready to get the recording going, and we'll Facebook or whatever, and we'll go from there.
We're actually all set for a recording, so we're good to go.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Albany City Planning Board. The topics today are very varied, but I think we'll get through them in a pretty good manner. We have with us our planning director, Bradley Glass, and assisting Brad today is Aaron Glennon. Planning board members include Martin Hull, Roman Kuchera. I'm Al DeSalvo, the chair. We also have with us our Corporation Counsel attorney, Martha Dougherty. We are awaiting one more planning board member who's running late. Our other planning board member, Chris Ellis, is involved in this wonderful time of year with the state budget. So he's probably working 20 hours a day right now. I want to go over the rules of procedure that we follow. First, when we get the first item on the agenda, it's a workshop session. In the workshop sessions, this is an opportunity for the planning staff to present new projects or projects that we've seen before but have changed and are not yet ready to be brought before the board in an official meeting. And the discussion on the workshop issues is between the board members and the staff. There's no public comment. There's plenty of time, of course, for public comment during the regular meetings, and usually it's more than one time, and you have opportunities to present your opinions at that time. Today we have one item on the agenda for the workshop. The second part of the meetings are the public meeting or the public hearings. And in those cases, this is the procedure that we follow. The presentation would be made by the applicants. If it's an item that we haven't seen before, the applicant has 10 minutes to present. If we have seen the project before, the applicant has 6 minutes to present. The board members then have the opportunity to ask questions to the applicant. After that, we either have planning staff recommendations or public comment, depending on the project itself. With public comment, we encourage everybody to send written documentation of their opinions about a project. This enables us to have a solid record that we can refer to and that's available for the public. People who do want to speak at the meeting must sign up 24 hours in advance, and you have 3 minutes to speak. If you are a common council member, we give common council members 6 minutes to speak because they represent a larger area in the community. Then we have the planning staff recommendations. And then after that, the applicant can clarify any items that might have come up in the discussion or straighten out any factual issues that might be in question. Now, before we begin, however, our corporation counsel has done some research regarding some issues and questions that came up in our previous meetings regarding the role of the Albany County Planning Commission and its role in terms of waivers, and also our role in terms of waivers as it relates to conditional uses. So Martha Mahoney, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, hi. Thanks, Al. I just wanted to clarify, there were some questions that were asked at the last meeting that are not super relevant in terms of the agenda for this meeting now, but regarding whether it's permissible for the board to conditionally approve requested waivers. At this point, I am comfortable with the board conditionally approving waivers, so long as the issues identified are, there's a manner for them to be resolved and it's set out in the board's decision. And then for the Albany County Planning Board, there was some confusion, or I just want to provide some clarification that the Albany, from my understanding, that the County Planning Board, they don't need to review each individual waiver request if an application includes a waiver request. My understanding is that the County Planning Board just has to have reviewed the project itself before any manner of a decision can be made on any aspect of that project. So whether it's the waiver aspect of the project or the waiver request or a development plan review request. And
Okay, thank you.
of course, thank you.
Any questions by Martin or Roman concerning that? Okay, we'll move on then. So I will open the meeting with the initial project, which is on the workshop agenda, and it's the one item that we do have on the workshop, and that's 875 Broadway. And this is a proposal by GMS Realty to develop a storage and wholesale distribution extension on it in an existing building, and this is in the warehouse district. So
That's
Brad?
Yeah. So yeah, GMS Realty. And I think, Aaron, if we could maybe just go to the next slide, is Green Mountain Electrical Supply, and they occupy the, if you look in the bottom left, that site there is currently a 59,985 square foot building. They're looking to make it something around 63,000 square feet. And that would entail a 3,276 square foot addition, consisting of 5 loading bays off of North Ferry Street. There would also be restroom facilities and a break room in the new space. There will be new sidewalks to improve the pedestrian connection along North Ferry Street. On the top left there, you can see North Ferry Street would be at the top of the picture there. You see the proposed sidewalk. And then the area setback where the loading bays and the tractor trailers are lined up. There are some minor clarifications we might want to work through with the applicant, or, I think they're here today if the board has any questions of them related to the gate system and how that's going to operate. But overall, we see this as a pretty straightforward project. that could potentially be a consent agenda item at the next meeting. We have received some preliminary department feedback and haven't really identified any major hurdles for them in the upcoming process.
The proposed loading dock area that I see, which is in that heavy black line, is immediately to the left. Is that the break room
Yeah,
part of?
the break room and then the restroom to the far left.
Yeah, okay. And the building, the loading dock's only in that section. It doesn't go all the way out to Ferry Street. That just, I guess, that drawing depicts the trucks backed up into it.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions by Roman or by Martin on this one?
It seems very straightforward.
Yeah, just one question. There's no impact on parking requirements or anything like that, right?
No, I mean, they have parking more towards the front of their property, the general customer and employee parking. So, I mean, currently there looks like a handful of vehicles parked there. I could inquire with them as far as, how that impacts their general availability, but it's quite a bit of parking in front. So I'm sort of suspecting that they're parking there mainly for convenience purposes.
Right now, do they own the entire or use the entire building at this point then?
That's my understanding. I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure if there's, Dan Hirschberg is nodding, so I'm gonna take his word for it.
Okay. Okay, that's what I was assuming.
Okay, any other questions? All righty, we'll move on and open the formal meeting. So this is a meeting of the planning board, and we have two items, I believe, just checking here. Yes, we have two items on the consent agenda. One is 875 Broadway and the other is 1379 Washington Avenue. We have not received any comments from anybody wishing to speak on either of those topics. So we will move ahead and I will ask for a vote of the board as to whether we want to consider 1379 Washington Avenue as a consent agenda item.
So
Sure,
moved.
that's fine. Seconded.
Okay, motion by Roman and seconded by Martin. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And nobody is against. That's unanimous. And we need to formally vote on it afterwards, but we'll go to the next one. And this is 19 and 21 Erie Boulevard. Yes, 19 and 21 Erie Boulevard. And again, this is an item that we approved, and we've seen it a number of times. It was just a minor change in the size of the commercial space and an increase in the number of units. Do I have a motion to approve this as a consent agenda item?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Martin, seconded by Roman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, opposed, none. That passes unanimously. Okay, going back to 1379 Washington Avenue. The recommendations. On that was that the recommended action is approval with these two conditions. The first condition is prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall receive final approval from the Department of Water and Water Supply. And the second condition is that there has to be an implementation of the proposed affordable housing compliance plan.
Just a point of order on that, Al. Implementation of the affordable, what does that actually entail?
Brad, you want to explain that?
Yeah, it's essentially ensuring they actually lease the units that they've set aside in their affordable housing compliance plan that's submitted with their application. Part of our guidelines for the affordable housing set aside program stipulate that that should be stated as a condition of approval on all planning board approvals. So, you know, regardless of whether it's a condition, we expect that to be implemented, but this is just underscoring that fact.
And I know we talked about this before, but is there any way of keeping track that those units remain available for affordable? Or
yes, we have that system internally through the Community Development Agency. We're really just getting to the point where some of these units are coming online. So really, we're just kind of having our first test cases in that, but yeah, we do have that. You know, the enforcement, should we need to go there, is a little bit more complicated, and we're working through that as well. But yeah, we do have a plan in place to do that.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve 1379 Washington Avenue. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor with the conditions as mentioned? So, aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Passes unanimously. 19 through 21 Erie Boulevard. The recommendation is to approve with conditions also. And those conditions are prior to the issuance of a CO, the applicant must receive approval from the city for a licensing agreement for the portion of the right-of-way that's being used for parking, snow storage, and landscaping. And then secondly, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant must satisfy all conditions and requirements placed by the Division of Engineering for the project. And the third condition is the implementation of a proposed affordable housing compliance plan. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Yes, so approve, or motion to approve based on those three conditions.
Seconded.
Seconded by Martin. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that's been approved. And moving from the consent agenda, we will move to the public hearing. And the first item on the public hearing is 250 Washington Avenue Extension. This is, the applicant is Fusion Recovery Albany. And it's in an MUCI, which is Campus Institutional Zoning District, and it's to occupy a 5,500 approximately square foot space within a building at the site that's already built for use as a controlled substance dispensary. Okay, do we have a presenter? Looks like Mitchell Bauman from Young Summer.
Or Allison Phillips, I believe, is also on the application.
Okay, and I would also mention to those of us who are going to look at the project for the first time that we're not taking any action tonight because this is the very first time we see it. Also to the public who might be interested in this project, there'll be plenty of opportunity because I'm sure we will see this for more than one time. And the public will have an opportunity to weigh in. Okay.
Give us 1 second, Al. It looks like, oh,
Hello.
okay.
I'm,
She's back on. Never mind.
hi, I'm sorry about that, everyone. Lost my screen for a minute. I don't know why. My name is Allison Phillips. I'm an attorney with the law firm Young Summer. I'm here with Mitch Bauman today, who's the principal for Fusion Recovery Albany. We're the applicant for a conditional use permit here today for a controlled substance dispensary located at 250 Washington Avenue Extension. We have prepared a PowerPoint presentation for the board. Right here, okay, great. So you can see the location here, 250 Washington Avenue Extension. We're located in an existing office park located between Washington Avenue Extension and Columbia Circle West and Columbia Circle East Drive. It's an existing commercial building. We do not plan any physical alterations to the exterior of the building. And we'll actually be utilizing the first floor of the unit at 250 Washington Avenue. We have included in our application materials a proposed floor plan, which wasn't included with our original application materials, but it is included with the PowerPoint. I can start with this image that's up right now. This is the site plan for the office park. 250 Washington Avenue Extension is located to the rear along Washington Avenue Extension. It's the unit on the right. It's a little difficult to see with the writing here, but it's in this corner up here. Yes, right where the cursor is. There's an existing, I'm sorry.
Can you point to where Washington Avenue would be on this plan?
Yes, right at the top there. So there is an internal roadway that it encircles the
Right.
existing structures, but Washington Avenue Extension does run along the rear there. There is an existing entranceway off the main parking lot. You'll see it at the front of the building, which is opposite from the Washington Avenue Extension side. And if you look closely on this site plan, you can also see just to the left of that entrance, there's a walkway to a side entrance that we will be utilizing for our main entrance to the suite. That's shown on our updated interior floor plan that we submitted with the PowerPoint presentation. So we're excited about that. You know, it's a way to, improve what we think is our access to the building, providing a private entrance for our clients, and doesn't require any modifications to the exterior of the building because that's an existing doorway. I think if you want to go to the next slide, you will see the proposed floor plan. I'm sorry, this is the existing floor plan, and then this is the proposed. So you'll see here on the left-hand side, this existing doorway here would be our main entrance into the renovated suite, right into our private lobby. If you can all see that.
Yep.
So our clients will have their own private entry that will come directly into our lobby. They won't have to use the main entrance in the main lobby that takes you to the second floor of the building. You can also see in this proposed floor plan how we have the layout. You have what's down here on the left-hand side, the dosing area. This is where the medically administered treatment will take place. Above the lobby, you have various offices and group therapy rooms. Part of what Fusion is proposing here really is an elevated approach to opioid treatment programs. In addition to the medically assisted treatment component, the facility will provide and require clients to also undertake the counseling opportunities that are going to be offered there. And that's counseling, that's referrals to social services, behavioral therapies. It really is providing an elevated approach to opioid treatment programs, which is something that we're lacking in this area and that there is a real need for. We've provided in our application materials, and I know there's a slide here, and I think I apologize, I may be going out of order, but we have provided our hours of operation. Kind of the peak hours for the program will be in the morning from 5:30 a.m. till about 12 o'clock p.m. That's when the medically assisted treatment will take place. So the actual clients will be scheduled. It's going to be a highly scheduled program where they would come for their appointment, they receive their treatment, their medication dosing, and then in the afternoon and into the evening hours when we would be providing the support services that are also going to be offered on the site. That's the counseling, the behavioral services. So the peak hours are really when people will be coming up for their appointments to receive their medication, and the support services would be taking place in the afternoon and evenings. We do have, and I think we included in our application materials, a description of, obviously we have access to the existing parking lots at the building. We will have a certain number of designated parking spaces that are reserved specifically for Fusion Recovery clients, but we also have access to all the overflow parking that's available in the office park complex. So certainly adequate parking and also access to public transportation. There are, I think, 4 bus stops in the proximity of the building, all within the office park, that are available to clients who will be coming to the facility using public transportation. I guess, you know, I'm happy to, you know, kind of see the rest of my time if the board wants to open it up to any comments from the public, or if any members of the board have questions for me or Mitch about the application, we're happy to address that.
Well, we will, I don't believe we have anybody to speak, but we will have questions from the board. Any questions, board members?
Well, first question would be if you can expand on the public transport, what exactly is available and how frequent? Because I must admit my surprise to seeing the requests like this in the office park on Washington Ave Extension. So if you could address that.
We do, you know, I can share my screen. I actually have the bus route kind of up on my screen. I don't know if that's possible. I can kind of show you where the bus stops are in proximity to the building. Let me see if I can.
If you can just discuss it real quick with the frequency and if they actually go through the office park itself, or I assume that they do, or do they just go along Washington Ave Extension on the parallel roads, or what?
No, they actually. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I can answer that question, Roman, because I actually use the bus to get to my employer out there for a while every now and then, and I think, and you're right, there are a number of stops on shoot, I'm forgetting the name of the road.
It's Columbia Circle.
Columbia Circle, that's right. But the problem with that bus line is it only runs in the peak hours and infrequently at that. So it's not the easiest service to use. There is the Flex service, however, but that also has its drawbacks. I do think that's a bit of a concern.
We have been looking at the public transportation available, and it is an important component of you know, kind of looking at what location works best for this use. There is a large bus station available at the
Cross Gates Commons,
the Cross Gates Commons. And we are looking into the possibility of having transportation available to shuttle clients back and forth from that larger bus stop to the facility, if that's necessary based on, you know, the need from the clientele. We do have customers who will arrive by their own automobile and they'll park in the parking lot in the designated spots or the overflow that's available in the existing parking lots. And the clients will be able to schedule their appointments at times that are convenient for them to get to the site. So if it's a client that needs to rely on that public transportation, we will work with them to try and, you know, schedule their appointments at a time that works best for them to be able to access the site.
Following up on that, the questions I have are twofold related to that. I'm familiar with Conditionally, 175 Washington. 175 Central Avenue. And I noticed that the clients who come there often use either Star or they use A+, you know, the service vehicles. Will the clients be using those as well to get out to that Washington Avenue extension?
I think those services will also be available to clients who need them.
Okay, my second question is this service unique to the city? I noticed there's only 2 other facilities that assist people, Whitney Young Health Center and Camino Nuevo. Do they have the comprehensive services that this company provides, which you mentioned, referrals to social services, and you mentioned that there's treatment and connections to other places, housing, et cetera. Is this something that's common to the other ones? Do you know?
I can't speak to those business operations directly. My understanding is that they don't provide the same kind of enhanced treatment experience that we are proposing here at Fusion Recovery, which is a combination of the medically assisted treatment with the support services. And also, just specifically with the medically assisted treatment, we do offer a range of medication assisted treatments that we can tailor to the client. So it's my understanding is that, I think, whereas those other businesses may be limited to strictly methadone as the treatment option for patients or for clients, here we are going to be providing, methadone as a treatment option, but also the kind of larger array of buprenorphine treatments. That is a different kind of treatment which requires far less frequent levels of dosing. So my understanding is that this is different from what we already have in Albany. It's something that's not available in our community right now, and it's something that there is a need for.
Okay, and my final question, and excuse my ignorance about this, but when folks get treated with methadone, which is I guess an antidote to opioid addiction, is that a drug that impairs them in any way? Like you mentioned, some clients can drive there. Is this like alcohol or marijuana or other substances that might impair people from being able to drive?
No, and I think, Mitch can speak to that. He's the principal here for Fusion Recovery and certainly has more knowledge about the actual treatment and medications that he could share with you.
Yeah. Oh, hello all. Methadone in general, to answer the question simply, the answer is no. It does not impair them from operating and functioning a normal lifestyle. Our job is to not only manage methadone clients, but hopefully eventually what makes us unique is to get them off of methadone and onto a more manageable drug. The comfort level is to combat fentanyl. We only have methadone right now, and we have to step them down carefully. There's about 40 years of studies that have been done, how to do it appropriately so that the client doesn't relapse. It's the one drug we have until something else comes out, but the plan is to require them to not only participate, to be offered the opportunity to step down, and they are required to go to a minimum amount of clinical services to participate in any of the programs that are medically assisted.
But you didn't specifically answer my question. You talked about a normal lifestyle. I asked if they're driving to the site and then they get the treatment and they drive away, is there any impairment in terms of them driving?
No, sir. I thought I said that right out of the gate. No, they're absolutely fine to drive. It does not impair them. And we're very careful on dosing as well.
Do you know the percentage of the clients that you have that get addicted because of injury versus just having mental issues? I understand that a lot of the people, at least in the experience and things that I've been reading, that there are far more people that get injured, like on the job or something, and end up getting addicted because they need painkillers versus others. Is there
the epidemic has shown that the disease of addiction far outweighs pain management and on the job injuries. If I were to, I don't know, it's community based, so each geography is going to be slightly different. If I were to guess, and after 2.5 decades, I guess I'm a pretty good guesser, I would say maybe 60-40 split. 40% would be on the job injury that became addicted to the pain management they were on. And we do quite a bit of referral business with local physicians to manage it and get them on a safer drug.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the last question would be, I see you'll have 18 employees on site during the peak hours. But I didn't notice in that, the floor plan that you have, I forget the word you call it, at the bottom left, like where they get the treatment, I guess, the treatment room, that there was chairs or beds or whatever for, yeah, is it eight?
Those
Eight
are the
total?
nursing. Yeah, so those are the actual nursing stations. So each chair represents a nurse. Plus you'll have a director of nursing also occupying the back of that space along with the pharmacy area.
Okay, and individuals who go through the step-by-step procedure real quick. A patient comes in, they go directly to the nurse station, and then they wait somewhere to go to the counseling rooms.
Right. So, and it depends. It is done case by case, but in general, the short form is we oversize our lobbies in our locations because we don't want people ever outside loitering. They come in, they have already been pre-planned. Are they just getting dosing and leaving? Or if they have any reason why they need to see either our medical director or our nurse practitioner, or if they have any screening due, or to see a case manager, those are 10 to 12% of the census or amount of people that would be walking in. So in general, most people will come in, they'll be screened by the receptionist, log them in that they're in the lobby, their number's called, it's all done electronically. They go up to the nursing station, they get their dose, and they leave. The small percentage may have to take a urinalysis, or they may need to take their vitals, because most insurance companies, as well as medically, we need to check vitals, check levels at least twice a month at a minimum. We need to make sure they're participating in the program. And not to get off topic, but it's a zero tolerance program. If they don't participate, they don't get to stay.
Mm-hmm. How many people would be coming and going on a typical day?
At the beginning, once we stabilize and build the business and it gets stabilized and we know, you could see 150 to 200 in a day, which is very little. We do kind of stretch it out, and we use practice software management that really hones it into 30-minute blocks where we can see them, move them out, see them, move them out. The ones that need to stay, they're scheduled to see their clinician, the case manager, the doctor, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you'd like to move everybody to a safer drug and see them quite a bit less frequently. But, I've seen methadone clinics with 500 clients manage very well. I hope that we get, that type of census, but it would be spread out throughout the week versus piling them all in between 5 and 11 a.m. And that's because we're more focused on the clinical than we are on the medical.
So 150 to 200 people over the course of the day, mostly in the morning, however.
Right.
Okay.
I always use the analogy when someone asks that. It's a great question. If you think about a CVS or a Rite Aid, they see a lot more people than we do in a day.
Okay, thank you.
How many of these recovery centers do you have? Are you specific to one area of the country, or are they spread out all over the United States?
Well, this is actually my company. I decided to start my own company about 4 months ago. Offered backing, and I've built 15 residential facilities. I was in the process of building one in Greene County, a very large one out in Lexington, which is how I met Allison. We're right now going to stick with 3 to 4, get the bugs out, open them up slowly. Albany is the mothership. This is our home base. I'll probably be moving up from Florida once I know my kid is in good, stable condition and I can leave her in Florida on her own with her child. And from there, we're going to focus mainly on New York, New Jersey for right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. We received one letter, which is on the record, and the planning board members can see that letter. That's in the Dropbox. And this is a project I'm sure we'll see in the near future as well. Okay,
Yes.
that ends the public hearing. We'll now move on to the public meeting agenda. And before we move on to that, I will mention that the second item on the agenda, which is 700 Smith Boulevard, the applicants requested that they appear at the end of the meeting rather than the second item on the agenda. So we will move that one to the end. But on the public meeting agenda, the first item is 344 West Church Street. The applicant is Global Company. And the zoning district is General Industrial Zoning District, and it's a proposal for the installation of solar panels. And the requests under consideration is a waiver of certain development standards in sidewalks. This is the first time we've seen this project. So the applicants have 10 minutes to make a presentation. Do we have the applicant in attendance?
So, hi folks, this is Dennis Fair from PowerFlex. So I'm the project developer, but there is a law firm that is actually representing Globals in this presentation. And I was expecting them to speak to it this evening, but I'm happy to do so if there's Rob. So
Yeah, I just elevated Rob to a panelist. So
great. I'll let Rob speak then. But I'll be here to answer any questions if you have any besides. And I'll just say I'm a resident of Albany. I've been in the solar business for 15, 16 years. This is a wonderful project, ticks more boxes about what's good about solar than almost any other project I've done. It's just economically strained by the sidewalk, and it's questionable in my view whether that's a proper addition to the area given the safety of the conditions down there. But I'll let Rob speak to it when he comes on.
Yes, actually, I can only aspire to Rob's good looks. This is Jesse Summer, and it looks like I'm reflected as Rob, but I am in fact Jesse. So sorry to disappoint. So we can burn through this. I don't believe I'm controlling the presentation, but I can follow along on my side if there's someone who's willing to elevate this or advance the slides. This is just giving you
yeah, if you just want to, you can just tell me when you want to proceed to the next slide.
Right. Well, this is actually going to be relatively simple since it's a truncated review. It's not even a full analysis or assessment of the project. We're really just asking for what ultimately will be review of the waiver request to install a sidewalk on this ground-mounted solar array. And I will just reiterate what Dennis was saying. That, yeah, I mean, it's a cool project. If you look at what is currently there, it's a perfect place for this ground-mounted solar array. And the objective ultimately will be to work with NYSERDA to give low and moderate income residents an opportunity to get discounted rates on their energy provision. So again, this is just looking at whether or not what you see here in the south of Albany, in the Port of Albany, would require a sidewalk, whether that is in fact a provision of applicable codes of the USDO that we need to follow in light of the fact that this is an industrial area. If you go to the next slide, thank you. If you go to the next pictures, you can kind of see what
what we're talking about. And in fact, if you'll advance that one further, I think what you're getting a sense of on these slides is this is not really amenable to pedestrian travel. We're talking about an industrial zone. To go to the next slide as well, I can start kind of going into the justifications for why a waiver would be appropriate. And it's just a picture of the solar array. It's in the midst of, you see the tanks to at least the bottom of this slide. One of the ways that we've depicted this is, do we risk, if we install a sidewalk, does this just become a sidewalk to nowhere? It doesn't really afford, if anything, I mean, it almost potentially is encouraging a degree of accessibility by pedestrians that may not be consistent with the general concept of a neighborhood. So, Ms. Glennon, if you'll go through a couple more slides, I want to get to some of our assessment of the standards that we'll be utilizing as we talk about this project. So in terms of the overall installation of the array, we're talking about a 3-month project. And the only issues at this point that really have brought us here today is the fact that we're trying to be exempted from this requirement for the sidewalk. Give me one more slide to the next one.
This was it.
Is there a way, and there may not be, but if there's a way, I can kind of, I'm happy to talk about, to answer some questions, but is there a way that I can share my slides? Otherwise, I may just be pontificating at you folks for a few more minutes, but if you'll allow it, I'm happy to do that if there's not a way for me to share my slide.
We generally don't allow applicants to share their screens, but
that's fine. I just, unfortunately, you're
yeah.
gonna have to just accept that I'm going to be talking at you as opposed to following along with some graphics. But the point here is that when you're looking at the review criteria, there's a series of determinations as to whether or not this is going to be suitable. The waiver would be suitable for a project like this, and obviously our position is that it is, because the idea of a sidewalk may be inconsistent with the larger environment in which the solar arrays can be installed. This is a industrial use area. It's not even necessarily safe for pedestrians or bicyclists or the common sense use for sidewalks. It's located next to a fully operational terminal. It may not be an area that we want to encourage. Oh yes, here's some of them. It's not necessarily an area where we want to encourage pedestrian, movement. It's not exactly consistent with the general sense of what a neighborhood is designed to encourage with its installation of sidewalks. There's just no residential, retail, or mixed uses in this area. And so that's the first thing to consider. It's, whether there's going to be an undesirable change if a waiver is granted, and the answer is no. It wouldn't be an undesirable change to exempt us from the requirement for the installation of a sidewalk. Similarly, the waiver is probably it's the most prudent, it's the most, it makes the most sense in terms of what our suitable other options are or alternatives are to effectuate the intent of the USDL. We did consider installing a sidewalk. But there's second and third order effects that we want to avoid. That would require a stormwater pollution prevention plan, things that may not, it's just not necessarily the best use of the overall project, how it's envisioned in this area. And there's then the question as to whether or not granting a waiver even really amounts to some sort of substantial deviation from the schema of the overall USDO, and it doesn't. It doesn't impact the surrounding properties. There wouldn't be a degradation to the overall neighborhood climate by not having a sidewalk that is weaving its way around the solar array in this industrial area. The sidewalk, even envisioned, I should point out, when I say, when I previously said the sidewalk to nowhere, this sidewalk wouldn't be connecting to any other sidewalk. Not in the way that, this project would evolve in that area. And if anything, I also think a good way to look at this is in the context of what is the negative impact of a waiver. And in fact, the argument that I would make is that there would be a more deleterious impact if the sidewalk was going to be installed. Just in terms of the overall site disturbance for the development of this solar array. Obviously, there's going to be impacts to traffic. I certainly don't want to overstate it, but at least it's worth mentioning that during the process of construction, there would be dust and noise and odors, and all of that would be more or less avoided just by the installation of solar arrays or solar panels that don't require what amounts to larger construction incident to the development or installation of a sidewalk. And certainly, there wouldn't be an extension beyond what's required to put in these solar panels in a place that's already very amenable to it in terms of the existing use. And this area, I should also point out, this has been industrial. It's always been industrial, at least for the past several decades. This is not something that, as one of the standards for evaluating the request for an exemption, this isn't something that the applicant here has brought about. It's not a result of some action that the applicant is responsible for manifesting. This is, this is this is simply the applicant has an idea. It's a perfect place for it. And the overall intent of having a sidewalk in a development project like this, this would be the perfect candidate for a waiver because it kind of departs from the overall intent underlining or undergirding why we would want sidewalks with our development projects. And so with that, I appreciate your indulgence on that. I'm certainly down to answer any questions you may have, but I hope that kind of gives you an overall sense of what the truncated request is here. It's just whether or not a waiver for a sidewalk makes a lot of sense with.
Okay, yeah, we get it. You've been mentioned, you're kind of repeating yourself a number of times. So I do want to open it up to the board. If any questions regarding this?
Yeah, I'd like to, I'm sorry. I'd like to ask Brad about the Albany Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan and what it suggests for this location. Our notes say that sidewalks needed on one side of road is part of the plan. Does it specifically say which side, or does it contemplate a bigger pedestrian network in the port?
Yeah, I mean, Martin, I think I need to correct that actually. In looking at the plan, there is a proposed sidewalk extending some degree into the port area. Does not, however, go beyond or to the global property. So it does contemplate ending there. So, that wasn't something that was contemplated in that.
I was wondering what close proximity meant, but again, it's not close proximity, apparently. Okay, other questions? Okay, this we have to defer this, of course, for the next meeting. This is the first time we've seen it. I'm assuming there's because you mentioned in the beginning, Aaron, there's nobody that wanted to speak to this issue, right?
No, no one has signed up.
Okay. All right, so we will be seeing this project again next time. It has to be, I believe it has to be referred, am I right, Brad, to the Albany County Planning Board?
Albany County Planning Board, correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yes, that's correct. It will be referred this month, so should be in a position to be acted on at our next meeting on, who's the 26th?
I believe so, yes. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Sommer.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
All righty, the next item on the agenda, because we are moving Smith Boulevard to the end, the next item is 237 Western Avenue. This is the Lofts of Pine Hills. The proposal is to construct 2 mixed-use buildings having about 63,000 square feet of dwelling and about 3,800 square feet of retail space. This is a project we've seen a number of times. And the requests under consideration right now are for us to review demolition, to review the conditional use permit for the actual dwellings, which is the CUP 0052, the development plan review. There is a proposed approval with conditions, and then there's also the review of demolition. And I believe there's one other that I'm missing here, but I'm sure Brad will help me with that. So we will start with a presentation by the applicants. And in this case, since we've seen this both in 2019 and then after the time that we ran out of time as a result of the COVID issues, it came back to us with a revised plan, and due to the geotechnical problems. And so we have seen this a number of times. So the applicants, you have 6 minutes to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Hertzberg for Hertzberg and Hertzberg. I want to go through basically the plan very quickly. There are only a couple of slides that are germane to a couple of items that were raised today by Pine Hills Neighborhood Association and a letter to Brad Glass. And why don't we go through it, and when we stop at those slides, I'll try to address those issues. If you go to these statistics haven't changed since the last time we were there. We've added, we have the furniture, we have the required street trees and recreation area, all comply. And we think there's no reason to review this anymore. Next. The landscape plan, we did add significant trees along Western Avenue to comply with the code. We're somewhat limited on what we could add along Quail Street because they got this subsurface stormwater collection area is directly below the street tree area. There is one dead tree that we uncovered that we intend to replace, and other than that, there's no real changes in this landscape plan either, other than we have I don't know what the last plan added, the landscaping along the rear of the State Street properties at the top of the site and on the left-hand side of the site, the west end of the site. All that landscaping has been added during the process, and I'm not exactly sure which you've seen it, but we have added significant landscape items. Next. The SWIP plan hasn't changed. We're pretty much the same, and I think water and water supply is satisfied with it. There is one issue they're trying to satisfy with New York State DEC, which I think they will resolve, is the sewer district extension. It's called, because we're discharging more than 2,500 gallons a day to the system. Next. Demolition plan. This shows the buildings to be demolished, and there was a question raised about whether or not we had checked with SHPO, so we did make a application of SHPO, and I think the next plan has a SHPO letter on it, if it's the same one I sent. Yeah, this is the letter from SHPO saying there'll be no impact on properties in the New York State or Historic Register by this project, and therefore this letter permits the demolitions proposed as going forward. Next. These are the renderings. I think you saw them before, and I think basically, I think planning board had no negative comments about the views, and I think we're very pleased with the way the views have worked out. They're very similar to the original views approved in 2019, but there are some changes, and we think there are positive changes. Next. There are some other views. Why don't we go through these views, because my comment will be the same on all of them. That's from State Street, and that's the facade from Quail Street and Western Avenue. Okay, that's at the corner. Here's an issue that I would like to address. One issue in the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association letter was there's no entrance directly into the building footprint fronting on Western Avenue. That's not exactly correct. There's an entrance into the commercial area. What they're saying is the entrance to the residential area is partway down the side of the building. Our review of it said essentially that it would be inconvenient and disruptive because on Western Avenue, on the Quail Street side, we have a very large area available for commercial area. Here we have a relatively small area for commercial area, and we did not want to split it up with an access to the residential area above. Chad Stewart might have signed in to speak. I don't know whether Chad, you want to go forward with regard to
Dan, it's actually Scott.
Okay, Scott. The boss is taking over. Okay, Scott.
Yeah. I just want to say Dan's correct. This is more of a narrower footprint facing Western Avenue. Quail Street has much more frontage on Quail Street, so we were able to accommodate having an entrance coming out to the street as well as commercial entrances. On this street, we were extremely limited, but I do want to say, and I understand what the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association is saying. I appreciate what they say. I don't 100% disagree with you or agree with them. So a little bit of opinion. I know my understanding is it's not a mandate. Obviously, we have to face the street, which we do clearly with the building. But in my opinion, good urban planning isn't all about the facade. It's three-dimensional. And as you can tell, I don't have the mouse under my control, but you can see there's two entrances, one to the back, which is near where the parking is in the middle of the site. Thank you. And then the other is up towards right behind the commercial area, which is not far from the street. And being that there's a little bit of a driveway there, it's got really good visibility. It's going to have good lighting, and it's not far off the street. It's very convenient. Everything we've done is to code and all the zoning laws. And, I used to frequent the Ginger Man a lot across the street. And if you think about it, the parking's in the back, you walk up front, and it kind of energizes the whole block. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think this is fine. I understand the request, but I think what we've accommodated as best we can. And
okay, Scott, I'm down to like 2 minutes, and I got 3 more items I want to address before I run out of my 6 minutes.
Okay, I made my point.
Yeah, and you can come
Thanks,
back when the board has questions for you. Don't go away.
Okay.
Salvage of materials, we will allow a historic Albany foundation into the site pending safety conditions. There's one building that has an X on it now. We don't know whether access can be had there, but subject to them providing us with hold harmless so that we won't be held responsible if something collapses on them while they're taking it down. That's no problem. And the applicant does plan on go with universal access with CDTA. And the last item had to do with the vegetative covering. There was a question about whether or not we should try to beef up the vegetative covering to 30%. That would cost us some parking spaces. Pine Hills Neighborhood Association concurred that it'd be better to keep the parking spaces. And I requested in lieu of that we provide some additional planting, not on our site, but up and down I guess Quail and Western Avenue, the two streets you front on. I took at the site, there's a couple that we're replacing already on Quail Street. We're planning a new one, and we're replacing a broken one. And on Western Avenue, it's a wide tree lawn, and there are portions of that tree lawn that apparently used to have trees that don't have trees, and it's the applicant be willing to do it, and I had suggested we would add. We're adding trees in front of our site. You can see the 4 trees we have there at fairly close spacing, and that's in an area where there are no trees now. Then there's a gap where there are no trees west of us, and then it comes to a heavily treed area about halfway down the block. The applicant thought that if we propose to add up to 5 new trees in this area, it'd be suitable. We're willing to live with whatever the planning board thinks is reasonable as a replacement of increasing the green space on the site. And that's my presentation. I think my 6 minutes are up.
Okay, board members. I'd like to start off with a question. Scott, can you, Aaron, could you go back to the basement and first floor plan for Western Avenue? Thank you. Scott, what does the purple represent? Is that what's in the basement there?
You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I got it. I'm trying to recall. Can you zoom in a little bit, Aaron? Is that possible? It's support for the building because it is a basement area. I can't remember if it's storage or mechanical.
And what is the square footage of the brown space?
I don't have that in front of me. Again, it's on the drawings. I don't remember.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
I also just mentioned that this is not just a concern. The issue of a door on Western Avenue isn't just a concern of the Pine Hills Association. I think it's also a concern of some of the board and the planning staff. So just want to set that on the record. Other questions from the board?
Yes. Is there any kind of design treatment around the entrance that makes it visible from the street, that makes it clear that there is an entrance a little bit down the side of the building? And there's a sidewalk, I assume, correct? I think I saw that on the plan.
Yeah, there is a sidewalk all the way down. We do have it lit, so at night it's activated too. And we can, I'm trying to recall, we could put a covering over it. We're certainly willing to identify it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly something we're open to.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
That's everything for me.
Al, I had some comments, but
Yeah,
I could
well,
add that
wait.
recommendation.
Well, yeah, well, I'm going to ask for comments from the
Got it.
public. And I know that I believe that the president of the Pine Hills Association would like to speak.
And council member Alfredo Ballerin has also.
Right, I got that also.
this evening.
I got that also. Yes, I got your message. So let's start with John Clarkson, who's the head of the Pine Hills Association. John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. So thank you for letting me speak again. I'm not going to repeat, obviously, that's all in the letter, but I will tell you that the association supports the project and yet has these serious concerns, and we thank you for listening to them. And we're also appreciative of the fact that planning board staff, in essence, agreed with the concerns as we listed. I have received the notations on the letter from Dan Hirschberg, and so it's helpful to know that in most areas they are agreeing or somewhat agreeing, and that there are actions and improvements therefore. But as we asked in the letter to the planning board, we'd like you, hopefully the project can address these concerns fully. And the biggest unaddressed one is clearly the entranceway. That's very important to us. We want this building, we want this project, but we want it addressed. It seems to be a very serious design flaw. I get that there's less space on the sidewalk in this building, but that still doesn't sort of excuse the fact that you have a building that's primarily residential that doesn't have an entrance on the street. So every time someone leaves the building, in or out, and they're not driving their car and going out back to get their car, they're having to basically walk up a fairly steep incline, it looks like, from the elevations from what is the driveway to the parking lot. So we're saying the pedestrians are not important, the vehicular access is important, and you're going to have to walk in this sort of inconvenient way to get there. Now, perhaps it could be explained, we're looking at the elevations just like everyone else, but it really looks like if you go, further down in the elevations, I believe you're just showing the first page of it, to page 10, where there is the east elevation for building A. I mean, that looks like a heck of a slope to get down from Western Avenue to the entrance door. If you are carrying groceries back from the grocery store or leaving to go somewhere else carrying something, it seems that it's going to be highly inconvenient. So again, I want the overall, we're very positive about this project, bullish on development in the neighborhood because it is needed, particularly in Quail and Western in that area. We'd love to see it help the businesses, but I cannot see a way that that the proposed entrance would be convenient for any resident anytime they're not using their car. It seems very much inconvenient. So we leave you with that. It's in the planning board's hands, but we do thank you for hearing these concerns, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Member Ballerin, you have 6 minutes. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the ability to speak today. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the conversation that was shared today, and the fact that several of the concerns brought up by the neighborhood association have been heard, and many of them have been addressed. This is one of those projects that has had a lot of support from the neighborhood association, a lot of support from the neighbors over the last 3-4 years since this was originally proposed. It's as you all know, it's a rarity. It's not always the case when we have some of these new developments to get that type of support from the neighborhoods, and that's a positive thing. So I would like for us to try to see if there's a way to address the concerns with the Western Avenue entrance that the neighborhood association has brought up. I think they've been very willing to work with the developer and with the planning department on trying to find creative ways to address other concerns that have been brought up. With the issue with vegetation, they were the group that came up with that proposal for compromise to try to meet some of the concerns that are brought up, but also the still address the issues in a positive note. So I think if there's a way to have those conversations and try to address those issues as quickly as possible, because I don't think anyone wants to see a delay in this anymore. I think people want to see this be moved forward. I've already expressed my concerns many times when I've spoken about the parking. So I'm glad that no parking is being taken away, because I think, that's always an issue. So I'm glad that we're keeping the parking that we had. But I do think if there's a way to address some of the concerns the neighbors have about that entrance, and really make it so that this is a project people can continue to be excited about, that people can continue to look forward to, and really people can see as something that's going to be part of their community being uplifted versus anchored down. I think that's what we're looking to do. And about the walkability, I think, specifically on Western Avenue, when you have, so many of our businesses right there on that street, we'd want to make sure that new development would have easy access for walkability, easy access for those residents. So those are my less than 6 minutes time, and I appreciate the opportunity to have spoken to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Okay, Brad, could you please present the staff's recommendations?
Yeah, so sure. So there's a number of actions the board will need to take on this one. Al, as you had mentioned earlier, there's a conditional use permit, a development plan review, and several demolition review requests, as well as a secret negative declaration. I would just underscore, I think our only outstanding concern is again related to entrance on Western Avenue. As Alfredo, Councilmember Bellerin had stated, it's relatively rare in the city to see a project of this size get this sort of, neighborhood endorsement that this project has gotten. And there's been one ask from the beginning that I've heard pretty consistently, and that was, related to the residential entry to the buildings. We did ask the applicant this afternoon if they could present tonight why they couldn't accommodate that request. Unfortunately, I didn't see that. I heard that it's not a code requirement and that their opinion is otherwise. I would underscore John's concern too. There is a significant grade difference from the street back to the entrance. And I think if you're walking east on Western Avenue, I think, the casual, point of direction for a pedestrian being that there's not a sidewalk on the right side of that driveway entrance is the pedestrian is going to beeline right across the driveway entrance to the door, which is going to create a conflict with vehicles where there may be a grade change if someone's turning in from Western Avenue. So again, I'd like, maybe if the applicant has an opportunity to rebut, I'd like to hear again, like whether this can be accommodated or not. I would like that to be a consideration of the board, but I don't know that the applicant has addressed that yet. Otherwise, I want to commend Pat Rafferty for sticking this project out. It's been a long, hard road for him, and we greatly appreciate his investment in the city and the neighborhood.
Okay. Before we move on to vote on this, and before we go back for comments from the applicant, do any of the other board members have questions or comments to Brad? Okay, hearing none. I guess I'd like to ask Scott again. Can you address the issue of the grade, number one? And also, Martin Hull had asked you about if it's possible to make the side entrance much more prominent with a way that people would see it better. I don't think you really answered that except to say you have a sidewalk. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I just remind you, I did say we can certainly make it more prominent with lighting and an overhang. So we're happy to do that. We don't have anything to present tonight, but we're happy to work with the planning department on that. And everything that you're saying is we're not insensitive to it. I just want to point out a couple of things I think are important for everyone to consider. Is that when we had the first original, when the building was a little bit different configuration, but it was both facing Quail and Western simultaneously with very similar configurations. In both of those situations, both of the entrances were on the side. This is a side entrance, not a rear entrance. So when we got it first approved, they were under on the side, not on the front. And now we were able to get one on the Quail side. So, you know, the other thing is too, is as you point out, I've been with Mr. Rafferty from day one, and he's a wonderful, great human being. We should all applaud him. It's been a hard road. The thing is a little bit of logistics too, because we get a letter today, we're hoping for a vote to approve it, and he's been through IDA, and this will change all of his equations, because we'll have to take space away from the front area on Western. That's going to change calculations of return on investment and what he's asking for from IDA. And also I do want to, there's a pragmatic side to running retail space and leasable space on a commercial area. The way we'll probably have to split up the space, it will have less flexibility. And it will hurt his opportunities on the retail side. So it's a multi-layered ask. I'm not insensitive. We're not insensitive to it. If it's insistent to do it, you know, Pat and I have chatted about it. We will do it. We don't necessarily agree with it, but we realize that this is not necessarily our call at this time, because we want to get it approved like everybody else. So I can leave it at that.
Well, can you address the grade issue?
Oh, the grade issue. It is a little bit steeper. Unfortunately, it's God-given earth that we all have to work with. So yeah, we have to, you know, work with what's there as best we can and to make everything else work. And we've done that. I can say that Pat and Mr. Rafferty, it's going to be true whether, you know, wherever the entrances are, we're going to have to keep it safe. And, you know, it's part of the laws. Keep everything safe and
Grade on the sidewalk down the side is equivalent to the grade in the driveway, which it doesn't exceed 7%, which is like a 1 on 15 grade in there. And it, you know, it's certainly not flat, but it's certainly traversable. I mean, State Street is about 13 or 14% grade. People don't like to walk up and down that, but at 7% grade, it's significantly less. So I believe it's traversable, not dangerous. And like any place in the city, when you get ice and snow on a pavement or a sidewalk, it requires maintenance, so you end up with dangerous conditions. But that would be true even if the grade was 5% or 4%. You still have to do maintenance on a sidewalk during the winter. So I think from a safety standpoint, we think the grade is adequate to accommodate pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, and I like
this might.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
This might be impractical, but I'll throw it out there anyway. But how about the idea of moving the entrance to the second floor and putting a raised sidewalk to that location, so it'd be level out to the street, but exterior, but level out to the street.
The tricky part, if I, you know, it's probably more for Dan, but that sidewalk continues all the way back. And
right. Okay.
If I'm correct, we can't interrupt it like that.
And if we tried to raise the grade so that it buried the entire basement floor, it'd ruin all the circulation pattern in the rear where the traffic and the parking goes. We'd end up with like an 8-foot retaining wall at the back of the parking to get to level. I don't think that would be feasible for us to do from a grading standpoint.
And I do want to add that we're more than happy to do, you know, make it more prominent and have it well lit. And when you look at the plan, I don't know if you wouldn't mind, Aaron, going to the plan. Thank you. If you notice, it's only about a quarter of the way back. It's not like it's halfway or 3/4 of the way. And because the driveway is right there, everyone's going to have great eyes on the street and on that entrance. You know, it's a wide enough gap there. It's not like you're going between two buildings. So it will be prominent.
About how many feet back is that from the corner of the building to the entrance?
I don't have the exact dimensions on me, but it's not more than 30, I don't believe, from the corner.
Looks like it's about, I would estimate 30 feet comparing it to the other dimensions in the building.
Correct.
Okay, from the corner of the building.
Yeah.
I think, Brad, I wanted to address this to you. Scott Townsend brought up an important point, I think, that was we lost in the process, and that is when the planning board initially approved this, we approved it with a side entrance, actually in both. What is the difference now? Because we did approve it before with the side entrance. And it would seem to me to be inconsistent if we're now requesting a front entrance.
I mean, if it were me, I would admit that we made a mistake the first time and do it right the second time.
Okay. Any other questions by the board?
Can I add one more thing as the owner here? Can you guys hear me?
Who's speaking?
This is Patrick Rafferty. I'm the owner.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you.
Just something that may be relevant, may not be relevant, but 233 Western and 237 Western, when they were occupied with tenants, both lower levels had side entries down at the bottom of the hills to the lower level apartments, and they were frequently walked down with the slope as is now, which is going to be a lesser grade after this is developed than what we currently have, a little more progressive than the steep slope that it currently has. Never had incidents there. It's not ideal. I agree with that. But again, with what we've done here, we've tried to put our best foot forward and put the door as close as possible. So our existing entrances on the two buildings I had there are further back. If anybody drove by and seen them, now they've been walked, and these are my tenants. One side was students, the others were workers at the hospital, and they took the public transit all the time, so they were walking from the street.
I think, yeah, and I think it's important that it's not lost on us that the grade is 7%. Dan Hirschberg had mentioned the grade as an example on State Street is 14%. Okay. So starting, we have a number of items to approve or defer. The first item is to approve the conditional use permit for the actual multi-unit dwellings. And that's conditional use permit number 0052. The recommendation by the board is to approve. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Roman Cuchero. Further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. The second item under consideration is a development plan review approval. And the development plan approval is with these conditions. First, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall receive final approval from the Department of Water and Water Supply. I just wanted to check with the staff. Has that approval come in yet? Do you know? I know that was really close.
No, I mean, I think, because of our combined sewer district, the water department needs to negotiate these sewer extensions with the county health department and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So I think that they're optimistic, but there requires consultation. I know they've had a meeting, and that's the final is outstanding there. So it's not, we don't formally have an acceptance letter from the water department, and I believe they're awaiting those other divisions to make a final call.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so That's one condition, and the second one is, as we have with all the projects, the condition of the implementation of the proposed affordable housing compliance plan. So this is a development plan review approval with those two conditions. I'll move to approve that. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Second by Roman Conchero. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 That's unanimous. The third item on the agenda is demolition review. And the demolition review is to approve with one condition. And that's that demolition shall not commence until such time that an application for a building permit and a full set of building plans has been filed for review with the Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance.
Al, just a point of order. I want to make sure that we go through the demolition requirements before, just make sure they're stated before we vote on this.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said. I'm sorry. Tell me again, Roman, please.
We have to make sure we have there are certain requirements that were recently over the last year or two, we were included for demolition, for approval, definite demolitions, make sure that we address. I just want to make sure that those are stated before we vote. You'll have to forgive me, I can't remember what the requirements were for, but usually
Roman, if I could just step in too, I did note that the board did not make a secret declaration, I don't believe, which that should actually occur prior to the other items being voted on. So the board may want to go back and do that. And I did just want to underscore, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the board did not include the recommendations for the conditions from staff. So I just wanted to clarify that the board was deviating from those recommendations for the development plan review and the demolition review.
Yeah, I was trying to find out where those fit in. So, but going back to, let's stay with the demolition review. Can you enlighten us to what, I'm not sure what the demolition reviews entail that Roman's referring to. I'm trying to remember.
Roman, are you looking for us to read the standards?
No.
Say that again, Brad?
Are you looking for us to read the standards for demolition review?
Yeah, I don't know if they were actually presented or not. Usually Zach will present the standards and then the planning department's rationale for them.
Yeah, we're not, I mean, I could state the standards. We don't have articulated rationale for each of the demolitions on the agenda tonight. So I wouldn't be able to walk you through those.
Okay, but there's nothing unusual regarding the demolition requirement.
The only thing is we wanted to make sure, and they agreed to it, that the Historic Albany Foundation has the opportunity to salvage whatever they can out of the buildings.
Right.
And that was agreed to.
Okay, so as long as we include that as a condition, then I'm okay to move forward with that.
Okay. Now, before we move on, we may have to rescind our vote on the development plan review, I believe, because the staff recommendations are here. And I'm trying to read through them really quickly again. And I don't see Brad, I don't see where there's any recommendations regarding the front entrance, and I'm trying to when I'm looking at the notes and comments, I don't see it in there.
I'd be happy to read our recommendation if that's would be helpful. They should
Yeah, I think
be,
that'd be good.
Can you, let me get this up a little bit higher. Could you say that again, please?
I said I'd be happy to read the staff recommendation, if that would be helpful for consideration to the board.
Well, what I have here are the notes and comments, and I don't see anything in that. Well, we already approved the conditional use permit, and we have approved the development plan. So I guess I want to ask Martha Mahoney, do we need to rescind those, or can we get a clarification on that?
And this would be rescinding the 2019 approval? Is that what? Or
Martha, the fact that I point out was just the board, typically they're required to act on, to make a seeker declaration prior to acting on any individual applications. So I don't know that the votes tonight would have to be rescinded. I would maybe encourage the board to just start over again with that seeker determination and then move on to restate the votes.
And I apologize but it just, when was the vote made? Are we talking about 2019 or was it?
Just earlier tonight.
Okay, sorry about that. So. Let me look up whether.
So we have to act on the State Environmental Quality Review Act first, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah. And I don't know why I didn't see it in here.
Just to maybe help orient you, the additional conditions I was speaking to on the development plan review were related to the additional street trees. We were requesting to sort of mitigate the under coverage of the vegetative coverage on the site. That was something that was requested by the neighborhood association, that a universal access agreement with CDTA be secured prior to the certificate of occupancy, and that the building plans be revised to include a dedicated pedestrian entrance to the residential portions of the building along the Western Avenue facade of Building A.
Okay. All right, so the first thing we need to do is go back and waive the, do a negative declaration on the State Environmental Quality Review.
And so I'm sorry for the confusion. And it wouldn't be a motion to rescind, it would actually be a motion to reconsider. That motion has to carry, and then the seeker motion would be made, and then a new motion would be made about approving the project.
Okay. All right, so do I hear a motion to reconsider the development plan review approval?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of rescission, please say aye.
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 Okay. Now, will that satisfy, or do we also have to rescind the development plan review as well?
I would do that too, and I'll just clarify. So it's a motion to reconsider. I guess a motion to rescind is when a motion is made but not acted upon, but a motion to reconsider is when a motion is made and acted upon. So it would be a motion to reconsider the development plan review.
Okay, so I will make a motion to reconsider the development plan review. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, all those in favor of reconsideration, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to for negative declaration on the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. All right. Now, the conditional use permit proposal, is this the one where the conditions might, the staff recommendations would be, or is it in the development plan review?
We're not recommending any conditions on the conditional use permit. That's a straight approval.
Okay, so I will make a motion then again that we approve the conditional use permit. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, development plan review. The proposal here is approved with two conditions that are stated right here on the agenda. Those being, prior to the issue of a building permit, the applicant must receive final approval from the Department of Water and Water Supply. Condition number 2 is implementation of the proposed affordable housing compliance plan. But we have some staff concerns about the front entrance, and will that be another condition? Do we set that aside?
You know, I'd like to see that, that condition come to, you know, to be addressed satisfactorily. But it seems like, based upon the work and the plans that were created, that this is the best case scenario for the project as a whole. And that even though the access to Western is not as we would like it, or as the neighborhood association would like to see, and such us neighbors and whatnot, I'm, given that it's not a long distance from, you know, the entranceway is on the side, which would be visible because there is an entrance road there, and because it's not too far back from the street, given the circumstances, I would be okay moving forward, excluding that condition.
Any other thoughts by the planning board? Okay, I tend to agree with Roman. I think that my feeling is that we go ahead and approve the development plan review, except that we, as a condition, ask or put in as a condition, and hopefully we can word this appropriately, that the project applicants and the architect work with the planning staff to make that entranceway more visible, you know, and that they come to a conclusion. But I think in the interest of the fact that we approved this in the past, that the grade isn't as significant as it was initially thought to be, that this is the only feasible way to make this work.
Al, before you vote, for the staff's perspective, could you clarify when you say more visible, what that would entail?
No, I'm not going to design it for you, and I'm not going to design it for the architect. I think that it falls upon the applicants to come in and develop a way to make that entrance 30 feet away from the sidewalk more prominent, so that it addresses what's an imperfect situation. And I heard from the architect that they're willing to do that. So if Aaron, if you're taking notes, I think I'll make an effort here that I would move that as a condition of approval under DPR 0144, which is the development plan, that the board directs the applicants to develop proposals that would make the front end of the side entrance more prominent, and to work with the planning staff to get to a compromisable position.
I think that's
Not
good.
great wording.
Right. It's a good basic idea though, Al. I like that.
Al, can you make your motion to include the first two conditions as well?
Well, yeah, that's already on here. And I know I'm making the third one as part of the 3-condition package.
I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah. So we will vote on DPR 0144 that we approve the development plan with the conditions as stated. Prior to the issue of a building permit, the applicant shall receive final approval from the Department of Water and Water Supply that there is an implementation of the proposed affordable housing compliance plan, and that the architect and applicant develop proposal or proposals to make the side entrance more prominent, and to work with the planning staff to come up with a compromisable position. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Glenisa.
I think I heard a second by Glenisa Gaillard.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Finally, demolition review and approval. We have a proposal to approve with one condition on the demolition, and that is to have the demolition not commence until such time that an application for a building permit and a full set of building plans have been filed for review with the Department of Buildings and Regulatory Compliance. Do I have a motion for approval of the demolition?
Moved.
Moved by Glenisa Gaillard. Second?
Seconded by Martin.
Oh, further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's approved unanimously. All right, thank you, and sorry it was a very complicated set of proposals, but we finally, I think, got through them satisfactorily.
Very much.
Okay, and now I believe the last item on the agenda is 700 Smith Boulevard. I hope that the applicants asking for us to be at the last item didn't realize what they were getting into by waiting so long, but
that's okay. We had requested that, as we also have a planning board at the town tonight as well. So
okay. So this is 700 Smith Boulevard, and the proposal here is the construction of a 19,000 square foot building for heavy commercial services. And we've had a couple prior appearances at the workshop and on the board back in January, and there's a request for some waivers, including sidewalks, parking surface development and landscaping and street trees. Okay, since we've seen this again before, you have 6 minutes for the applicant.
Okay, good evening. We can proceed to the next slide. My name is Adam Frasino. I'm with McFarland Johnson Engineering. We had previously shared our presentation at the January 11th meeting to give you an overview on the project. And so we'll go a little quickly through the front end slides here, but I just wanted to refresh the board and the public on the project. So let's go to the next slide. Overall timeline has been the last few years for this project. Was purchased by the port. The port is the owner, and seeker approval was granted by the town for the entire project. Next slide. So to reiterate from before, this will be the first offshore wind manufacturing facility in the United States. I wanted to refresh everyone's memory again that at this facility, the long tower sections that are white in the right diagram, as well as the yellow transition piece sections, which are also on the right, as well as shown in the left photo. Those are the two pieces that will be manufactured specifically at this site, at the manufacturing site. Next slide. As I previously stated, the seeker process has been completed at the March 15th Planning Board meeting. A seeker finding statement was approved by the Town of Bethlehem Planning Board. Next slide. The overall project, the Port of Albany will be the owner, and Marmon from Quebec, Canada, as well as Welcon from Denmark is a joint venture, will be the operator. The manufacturing facility as a whole includes 5 buildings. 4 of those buildings are within the Town of Bethlehem, and 1 building that we'll be discussing in detail tonight is within the city of Albany. Next slide. It's just an overall schematic of what we're talking about. The Beacon Island site off to the left is where the manufacturing will take place. The 700 Smith Boulevard within the city of Albany on the right is the material receiving building, and those 2 sites will be connected. They already are connected by Normanskill Street, but a new bridge will go over Normanskill, and the whole Normanskill Street will be rehabilitated. Next slide. It's a site plan for the manufacturing site. I won't go into detail on this site as it is within the Town of Bethlehem and not in the city of Albany. But in general, you could see that deliveries will come over the bridge over Normanskill. Employee and visitor entrance is off of 144, and there will be a proposed wharf on the Hudson River. Next slide. Next slide, please. This is that same site, just with a 3D perspective view. As you can see the tower sections and the transition pieces graphically shown on the site in the storage yard. Next slide.
And again, that's the Bethlehem site, right?
That's the Bethlehem site, yep. So now I'll dig down a little deeper into the 700 Smith Boulevard. I'll go through some of these stats as we look at the site plan and existing conditions, so you can move on to the next slide. The existing site, as shown here on the aerial, is a vacant site with some existing buildings. There were 4, 2 have already been demolished along Raft Street, and 2 off to the far right next to the storage towers there. Those 2 will be demolished as part of the project. The aerial here shows it as a kind of a greenish brown. That is not what it looks like today. This site is a brownfield site that has been capped with millings and appropriate capping material back in 2020, 2021 as part of a remediation project. Next slide. This is the overall site plan for 700 Smith Boulevard. what's being proposed is a 21,748 square foot materials receiving building. There will also be a rail spur, as you can see off to the left side, directly into the site from the existing railroad tracks. 29 proposed on-site parking spots are shown adjacent to the building. There is also 14 additional overflow spots that are there today that will remain. The site, as I mentioned before, the storage yard is currently a gravel area and will continue to be a gravel area with what's considered dense graded aggregate, so that it will be a beefed up gravel surface in order to support the heavy loads that will be on there and the steel plates that will be stored. There are 2 access points into this site, one off of Raft Street and the other off of Smith Boulevard, to allow circulation for the commercial trucks to circulate the site. The proposed lighting on the site will be all directed from the building, and there will be no site lighting, freestanding lights on the property. This was done intentionally to avoid any spill onto adjacent properties and neighbors. Drainage, just to quickly summarize, it'll be collected within the site and it will be directed to an existing 42-inch main that is just on the north side of the site, the top part of this page, that ties directly into the Hudson River. It goes through the existing port terminal area and into the Hudson River. The water will be treated prior to going into that trunk line. Next slide, please. These are proposed elevations of the building. These have not changed since the January presentation. The max height is 43 feet. The upper left is what would be seen from Raft Street, kind of the front view of the building. The upper right is from the storage yard, or in other words, kind of the back of the building. And then the 2 lower ones are the 2 sides of the building. Next slide. This is just a very basic floor plan for the building. This building is not going to be that complicated. It is simply a storage or a material staging building. So there will be ability through the overhead doors for flatbed trucks to pull into the building. There is a large crane that can lift the supplies and unload it into the main area in the center of the building. There is also a single loading dock, your typical loading dock, on the upper right-hand side of the screen here. And that's for the smaller products that will be stored on shelving in the secured storage area. And then in the front part of the building is your mechanical rooms, as well as some offices for the employees that would specifically be working at this building. Also, the main entrance is off to the front there, where a sidewalk wraps around the building and down to the parking lot. Next slide. So some of the approvals, there are no requested area variances, no special use permit. This is within the existing port district. We will be combining, it currently consists of 2 lease parcels that the port had previously subdivided out for different tenants, but they will be combined. And then the primary reason for tonight is there are 4 different design waiver requests that I'll go through individually in the following slides. I will note that we did go through in the application each one of the requirements, and per the city's PowerPoint template, we did address each one of these in the next slides. They can be a little bit repetitive, so I will try to kind of paraphrase. And if there's any questions, feel free to stop me and I can explain further. Next slide. So the first waiver is for the parking, the number of parking spots. Based on the square footage of the building, the code says there could be 22 to 26 parking spaces. However, the operator has requested, they actually originally requested 30, and we've put 29 in there, which is above the city's code maximum. So we are asking for a waiver for that. Next slide. So we don't believe this changes the character of the neighborhood. There are plenty of other larger parking facilities within the Port of Albany. And also just due to the nature of this property, 29 spaces we did not feel was out of character. Next slide. Regarding alternatives, as far as the project on a whole, one alternative that was considered for parking was an off-site parking lot with shuttle buses. That was rejected pretty soon in the process by all parties, including the town, for environmental reasons. So that's where all parking will be on site at each building. Next slide. Given that we are just requesting 3 additional spaces, we don't believe this would be considered substantial. Next slide. And as far as impacts on the environment, the additional 3 spaces would not really add any impervious to what's out there today. The whole site is actually impervious today, and we're actually adding a little bit of green space from what's currently out there. Next slide. And then whether or not this was self-created, the code, the city code really reflects based on the building size. However, for a material receiving facility that's being proposed, a lot of the manpower is not interior to the building. It's also will be driving around the forklift and trucks that will be moving the products. So although it is self-created in the sense that we need the parking for the facility, the code is really based off of the 21,000 square foot building, not necessarily a site of this size, 14, 15 acres, and the operations that are being proposed. Next slide. Moving on to our next waiver we're requesting is the landscaping, and specifically the street tree requirement. Based on the 360 linear footage of frontage along Raft Street, per the city code, 11 trees would be required. We are not proposing any trees, as that doesn't fit the nature of the port, and I'll go on with each one of the items. So next slide, please. Again, with the surrounding neighborhood, there aren't trees along the roadways along the port. Currently, there are a lot of transportation and storage of petroleum products that are flammable, and flammable vegetation around those tanks is not a desirable solution around the port district area. Next slide. As far as alternatives, some of you may be aware, but on a regular basis, very large loads are brought into the Port of Albany, including things like wind turbine blades. And when they are navigating around this Raft Street bend, trees become an obstacle. So that was an alternative for the Raft Street use that supported the desire to not install new trees. Next slide. As far as whether the request is substantial, the site currently does not have any trees along the roadway frontage, and therefore we don't feel the lack of installing new ones being a substantial request. Currently, the site is all millings. Next slide. Again, similar to the previous comment, as far as an impact on environment, currently the site is all impervious area, and we are actually proposing a lawn area in the front. So we're actually increasing the green space. So it should be a positive environmental effect from the project. Next slide. And whether or not this is self-created, again, the storage of petroleum products and the transportation of petroleum products within the port is not necessarily part of this project, and is part of the safety protocols at the port to not have potential flammable materials along the roadside. Next slide. The next waiver is for the sidewalk installation along the frontage. There currently is not a proposed sidewalk along the frontage. There is no sidewalk along Raft Street or really anywhere within the Port District. Next slide. To go along with that, due to the high volume of trucks, oversized loads, railroad traffic, heavy equipment, and the fact that there is no existing sidewalks, that fits with the current character of the Port District, similar to the previous presentation earlier tonight, actually. Next slide. As far as alternatives considered, sidewalk would really be out of place. Here, there's also, for those that aren't familiar with the site, there are 4 railroad crossings immediately adjacent to the project. So having sidewalks with the railroad crossings is also a somewhat dangerous scenario. Next slide. And again, as far as it being a substantial request, as previously noted, the port doesn't currently have any sidewalks, so the fact that we're not proposing anything here isn't really substantial request. Next slide. And omitting the sidewalk would actually, from an environmental standpoint, increases our pervious area, because if we were going to put a sidewalk in, it would probably go right through the green space along the front that we're currently proposing. Next slide. And whether or not this is self-created, again, there's no sidewalks at the port now, so it's not like we have an infrastructure that we can connect to. So it's not really self-created. It's not there today. Next slide. This next waiver request is related to, in the code, referring to parking and loading areas, which, to paraphrase, essentially says it needs to be more of a solid surface. Per the code, we are proposing dense graded aggregate for the storage yard, which is similar to a compacted gravel with some finer materials on top that will be compacted down as the wearing surface, if you will. Next slide. As far as the character of the neighborhood, there are gravel laydown areas throughout the Port of Albany, the Port District as well. So this wouldn't be a change in character. And it's consistent with other areas, storage yards. Next slide. Alternatives considered. DGA is the preferred method of surface treatment for wind turbine manufacturing facilities. Primarily, there's none in the US, but the ones in Europe, due to their extremely large loads and point loads, if you did have a paved surface, it would very likely break up very quickly and become a maintenance nightmare, where the dense graded aggregate serves as a surface that can regularly be groomed. So when they have a heavy load sitting there for a month, 2-month period, and then it moves and there's depressions and things of that nature, they groom the dense graded aggregate on a regular basis to keep everything nice and smooth. And this is, like I said, industry standard and the preference of the Marmon Welcon team. Next slide. Whether this is substantial, it's actually going to be quite similar to what's out there today with the gravel, except for it'll be more compacted. Next slide. As far as impacts on the environment, again, I stated this previously that that we're actually proposing some additional green space compared to what's out there today. Also, when it comes to impacts on the environment, the surface runoff is faster and higher volume if it was a paved surface rather than a gravel. Some of that water will infiltrate into the ground as opposed to being pure runoff. Next slide. And then again, whether this is self-created, again, the site is already pretty much a graded aggregate material, And we are just staying consistent with what's out there today, as well as the industry standard. And I think that's it. I don't know, is there any more? I believe that's the last slide. Last slide. So any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer. I tried to go through this quickly, but it is kind of a lot going on.
Hey, Brad, you have made recommendations here, and I note that there is the sidewalk requirement you're recommending to defer. I guess a question I would have is, does this, if a sidewalk were built there, does it connect to any other walk? Any other walks? Is there a connection?
No, there's currently no connection.
Okay.
But I think the idea would be to create one over the course of time, I'm guessing, right? I think there's
Correct. I mean, I think the reason for deferral was to deal with that in tandem with the other application that we have with the global facility that you heard earlier. And I think before we fully waive that request, we just wanted to make sure we were taking any public comments on that subject, which it doesn't sound like we have many. But again, sidewalks are a thing we consistently get asked for in many areas of the city. So before we jump to any conclusions on that, we just wanted to make sure we air that out. We are waiting on some department comments back and sign offs for this project. So, our recommendation would be to act on the 4 waivers tonight and defer the development plan approval and the sidewalk waiver until the next meeting when we can have those all those final sign-offs buttoned up. And it'll be on the 26th of April.
Okay. All right. So there is a proposal by the planning board, by the planning staff to approve the waivers for parking surface material, the parking lot landscaping, and the street trees, approving those waivers. And of course, Mr. Fasino made a very complete proposal on that, or a complete explanation, I'm sorry. And the recommendation is to defer the question on the sidewalks and have that come up at the April 26th meeting. So do I have a motion to approve the waivers as stated?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Gleneesa Gaillard. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. The recommendation is to defer DPR sidewalk, 142, the sidewalks, until the next meeting. Do I have a motion to agree to the deferment?
So moved.
Moved by Gleneesa. Is there a second?
Seconded. Seconded.
Okay, seconded by Martin Hull. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's been approved. I believe that's the last item on the agenda. Is there anything else to come before the board?
Chairperson. Al.
Sure.
Pat Jordan has a question. I believe he's from the port.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Chairperson is Patrick Jordan from the port.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry to
yes.
interrupt. Just a procedural question for you or Brad. Is there more information that the port needs to provide for the sidewalk discussion, or are you simply waiting for the other departments to weigh in based on the global application? Because I know I'm stating the obvious, which our engineer Adam already did. There are no sidewalks in the port on the miles of road that we have, and there are no sidewalks contemplated or anticipated on any other projects that would come after this project. But whatever we need to provide to the board, I'm sure Brad can let us know. Or if we need to be involved in any further discussion, we'd be happy to.
Brad, can you answer that? Because I know that this has something to do with making sure that it's consistent with the overall plan. The comprehensive plan, and I guess making sure that all the public officials are aware of why we have to defer this. Is that correct?
Well, we don't have to defer it. That's at the board's discretion. However, our recommendation to defer was simply related to, anytime someone is requesting to waive sidewalks, we just like to, we get a lot of requests for sidewalks rather than waiving them. I do sympathize with what Pat says, and I think ultimately that may be the conclusion that we come to recommend the waiver. So if the board would like to take that action this evening, I would point out that the application still does need to come back for that development plan approval. And when I was speaking to department conditions, that's more of what I was related to. I have a comment letter that we received from the water department, for instance, that requires some adjustment to their documents. And I'm just compiling the comments from the various departments so I can get those over to the port. And I expect they can be turned around. So I think being that it's coming before the board anyways, and the board did defer on the other case for sidewalks in the port, I guess I would still maintain the position to recommend deferral. However, if the board feels comfortable at this time, I think ultimately we will recommend a waiver in this case.
Chairperson, if I could just for 1 second, we are not, I am not on behalf of the board asking you to reconsider your discussion. We rely on Brad for his expertise and have no issue waiting to the next meeting. I just wanted to know if and when, if you need any further support, we are able to provide it.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that since we're going to have to see this anyway, there's nothing lost in the terms of time.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, thanks a lot, Patrick. Is there any other business to come before the board? Okay. We will have an opportunity then to see see this project again. And I would remind anybody who wants to speak on this that it has been published more than once that in order for the public to weigh in on this, we recommend very strongly that you do a written letter so it's on the record. Also, it is the policy of all the boards that if somebody wants to speak on the issues, that they have to let the staff know 24 hours in advance. This is on the public notice that has been published, and this is in the 3rd month of that. So thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you on the 26th.
All right. Night.
Okay. Take care. Yeah, have a good evening.